What's going on YouTube? CloverBells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be recapping the Milwaukee Regionals that took place this past weekend, and we have a lot to discuss here. So it's the first big official regulationI regional, over 700 players, very good turnout here. So again, this is all leading up to the last couple of weeks of unofficial team building, unofficial online tournaments. And now we have the first official regional, just days into the format, right? And now it's always an interesting one with that first regional in a new format because, the meta hasn't really settled in just yet. People are trying different things. People think this is good. People think this is not good. Maybe this could be okay. But all in all, from here, the results are going to be based off of what we got from this Milwaukee Regional. So as always, we're going to, recap the results. We're going to look at, team cores that did well, what didn't do so well, and offer some insight moving forward because, we got a couple more regionals coming in, especially the one in EU, just taking place after Milwaukee here. But, just before we even get to the swing of things, what actually won here? So Andrew Ding's Lunala Miraidon team was able to win there. And look at third and fourth place, Lunala Miraidon teams yet again. And can I just say, were we right? Were we not right about Lunala and Miraidon Lunala? Look at the 6 that we have at the bottom of the screen. We've been having that for a couple weeks now. We like that pairing, and it just goes to show you that, for good reason. Like, Lunala is just a great supportive restricted, or secondary restricted, I should say. It doesn't always have to be supportive. But, the soft trick room idea with Lunala and Miraidon screens is actually very good. And can I also say, were we not right about Grimmsnarl, right? I said this weeks ago when we first started our team building series for regulationI. I'm very high on Grimmsnarl. I think it could be very good this format, and look at the results from this tournament. You can see there are a ton of Grimmsnarls here, which of course we love, right? If you've been following the channel since Sword and Shield, you know that we used Grimmsnarl on maybe like 80% of our teams. It's like the secondary CloverBells mascot after Celesteela. If that thing was legal, oh my goodness, I get to use my 2 favorite Pokemon in competitive play again. That would be crazy. But anyway, there was a day 2 CloverBells team. Okay, there was a day 2 CB team, and if you want to know what that one was, you can go ahead and look at the timestamp. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until we get to it. But I'm very pleased with the results from this tournament. A lot of things that we predicted or what we thought could be good were in fact good. So we got it right in terms of how we were able to pre-analyze this regional here, right? So anyway, I'm gonna stop right here. So let's go into usage rates. Let's see what people were bringing, and then after that, we'll take a look at these top cut teams here. Okay, as far as restricted pairings, this is what day 1 usage looks like. Of course, you're gonna see Calyrex Shadow Rider Zamazenta here at 12.8% at number 1. Of course, into day 1, this was the pairing that a lot of people anticipated being the most used, or maybe the most dominant pairing, and it was the quote-unquote pair to beat, within the early team building stages, throughout the month of April, of course. So no surprise to see it at number 1 usage, right? Not like success rate. I said usage. Okay, then at number 2, Miraidon Calyrex Ice Rider, and then Lunala Koraidon, right? So, these were the 3 archetypes that we started out with our team building series in April because we knew that these pairs would be very strong, right? Especially that Miraidon Calyrex Ice Rider pairing, because again, Bolt Beam coverage is very good. Just remember, Calyrex Ice Rider Raging Bolt teams, with like redirection support, those were already like very good. Now you get to replace Raging Bolt with a Miraidon, right? A free restrict. That's quite the upgrade, honestly. Like you upgrade from Raging Bolt to Miraidon there, so you still get that Bolt Beam coverage, and now you have another special attacker along with a physical attacking restricted. It just all works out. And again, the synergy behind those pairings is because Calyrex Ice Rider has sometimes a little bit of trouble dealing with the bulky water types or bulky Terra Waters. So imagine like bulky Ferrograph Terra Waters or Kyogre teams. So then that's where Miraidon comes in and can help you take care of that idea, right? And then, of course, then you have the Lunala Koraidon pairing. Again, 3 out of these 4 pairings, it's always like this strong fighting type with the ghost type, right? Because again, the ghost types are weak to dark types, and how do you beat dark types? You use a fighting type, right? So typically, historically, Lunala has done well on Sun teams. Remember Lunala Groudon teams back in Sword and Shield, or Lunala Groudon teams back in Sun and Moon. They were very, very good, and now we've got a new Dawn to play with. Technically, 2 new Dawns, right? You've got Lunala Miraidon, and now you have also Lunala Koraidon, right? So the new Sun partner is, of course, Koraidon here, and partnered with the photosynthesis Pokemon like Fluttermane, Brute Bonnet, and or the Chiyu. We'll get into the team comps later on, but of course, we knew the Sun team ideas, with Lunala would do very well here, so no surprise to see it there. And of course, just Lunala and Zamazenta are really good secondary restricteds right now, so it just makes a lot of sense because, again, remember what Lunala can do. You got Wide Guard support, and think about the Koraidon teams back in Regulation G. One of their biggest struggles, at least through most of the format, before later in the format, was they struggled with Calyrex Ice Rider, right? So Lunala now gives you a way around that because you can deal super effective damage back at it with something like Moongeist Beam or Meteor Beam, but more importantly, you have Wide Guard, so now the Calyrex Ice Riders can't click their super effective Glacial Lances into the Koraidon, which is great, right? So you have that support now, and then at the same time you have Trick Room, so you have speed control against the Tailwind teams, and also you can flip Trick Room teams upside their head by going for your own Trick Room at the same time. And then rounding it out here, of course, the Shadow Rider Koraidon teams. This is also a good pairing, right? Their builds are similar to Koraidon Lunala, but sometimes they may opt for a little bit more offense, right? They may add like Indeedee or Whimsicots. You'll see some of those combinations when we go through the teams there. But again, another same idea, right? Strong fighting type with the ghost type, just to help you deal with like Incineroar and Chiyus. But yeah, all in all, again, this is just based off of usage rates, right? Like now you have to look deeper because from here you have to look at the results and see where the restricteds did well and why they did well, and we'll talk about that more, later in the video. But this is day 2, so now look at this. Now you see Miraidon Calyrex 16.8%, and look at the drop rate of Zamazenta Calyrex, right? You went from 12 to now 8, and now Miraidon Calyrex goes from 12 to 16, so nice bump in usage there. And then the Lunala Koraidon teams are also getting a little bit more play because they're much more flexible, and they have a lot more tools, I would say, than some of the more faster ideas, the faster hyper offense stuff. And a lot of these cores, whether it's like Lunala Koraidon or Miraidon Calyrex, they use Grimmsnarl, right? So I think Grimmsnarl makes all the difference with a lot of these, and just Grimmsnarl as a whole just ruins a lot of damage costs, right? When you have double restricteds and you have so much damage being passed around because they have like busted attack stats and moves, you need a way to mitigate that damage, and this is why stuff like Grimmsnarl and Incineroar are really, really good in these formats, because you can mitigate a lot of that damage altogether. But yeah, then you see Zamazenta Calyrex drop down there, but look at this pairing right here, like Koraidon Calyrex. I gotta admit, this is something that I saw a little bit more towards the later part of April, and we'll talk about this pairing too and why it works. But there was quite a few teams that were also using this, and it makes a lot of sense too, just to match Ice Rider with Ice Rider that wants to come into the Koraidon matchup. And it also helps you deal with the Miraidon ideas sometimes a little bit. So we'll look at those cores and see how that works. But this is another cool pairing that we expect to rise even more now after Milwaukee here. But as far as like, the top 4 pairings, this is really good. But I thought there was another pretty cool graphic here. This is posted by Andy Brophy, right? So if you look at this, where it's showing you the Milwaukee meta review, right? Look at this just in terms of results here. So like CSR Zamazenta, but look, the most successful one, right? Even though it had a much lower usage rate, was Miraidon Lunala here. And then of course, after that, the Calyrex Miraidon core idea, 2nd, 5th, and 8th, 1st, 2nd, 4th, right? So much more successful results here. But again, this is so go ahead and give Andy a follow here. But this is a pretty cool graphic to look at, just in terms of success rate, right? Looking beyond the usage rates here. Lunala Koraidon still good. Koraidon Calyrex again, like we mentioned. But the hype right now is honestly with this duo right now, with Ho-Oh Miraidon, and we're gonna talk more extensively, towards the next timestamp in the video, after we talk about certain teams. But like again, Ho-Oh. The main idea with Ho-Oh is you match up well into Koraidon and Zamazenta, right? Because again, if you think about Koraidon, you know, it has a fighting move and it has a fire move. Ho-Oh gets to resist all of that because of fire and flying typing. And then you think about Zamazenta, again, it has a fighting move and a steel move. You get to resist that too with your typing, and you deal super effective damage back into both of them. Sacred Fire, super effective against Zamazenta. Brave Bird, super effective against the Koraidon. The only way to get around that is if you Terra. So you're forced to Terra, and then that might make you a little bit more vulnerable to like other partners later on there. So Ho looks really good against the fighting restricteds that are running around right now. You know, Regenerator is really good with Grimmsnarl, right? And we'll talk more extensively with that as we get to it. But I do like the whole Miraidon pairing. And again, we put out a rental too with that. So, you know, you can get that to go. I think we have it right here. Yeah. So like this is our Ho-Oh Miraidon rental that we put out a few days ago. And it just capitalizes off of a couple of, you know, key things here. So like this core of Miraidon, Grimmsnarl, along with Furgraph and Iron Hands is always going to be like really, really strong here. And then you add something like Ho-Oh here, and now all of a sudden Regenerator with like screen support is looking really good, because again, Ho-Oh wants to, you know, keep pivoting in and out and, you know, just keep recovering HP, making it harder to remove, and Grimmsnarl mitigates a lot of that damage. And then remember, Miraidon clicks Volt Switch. So when you hard switch Ho-Oh, you get to Volt Switch with Miraidon, bring Ho-Oh back in the same turn with more health, right? So, you know, all the more reason to use Miraidon Ho-Oh. And then this last slot here is up for grabs. I've seen Ursaluna, I've seen other ideas. I've even seen like Iron Treads. Like you want like that ground type there, which is great into like the mirror matchups and something like Raging Bolt for that matter. I opted to go for the Urshifu single strike just because it matches up a little bit better into like the Lunalas, the Calyrexes, the Terapagoses, right? So like you have that dark coverage on your team and you have that fighting coverage that you really need. So I opted for that direction, but I think the ground typing is also really, really strong here, and we saw that in the regional results. But if you want like a rental to try out, at least, you know, I think the core 5 of this is really, really strong. So go ahead and give that a go. This last slot here is just up for grabs. I opted to put the rental out with Dark Urshifu just because it made sense at the time, you know, when I was building the team and when I was testing it. Like it was really good into those Pagos, Calyrex teams, and the Zamazentas for that matter. Just because you get to click close combat and whatnot, and even like the combination with Iron Hands is really good along with Ho-Oh here. But I digress, okay? But now what we want to do is let's look at like some day 1 stuff. So I think we have it right over here. Oh yeah, these are just like individual restricted, just, you know, coming into day 2. So like again, look at Miraidon individually, like 42% usage. So like over half of the remaining teams in day 2, not over half, just under half is what I meant. Have Miraidon over here. Then Koraidon here, right? But look at that usage, man. And then of course Calyrex and Lunala to follow. CSR, Zamazenta. You know, you thought you would expect these to be within the top 4, but no, they're at the bottom 4. And then how about Ho-Oh entering the graphic now? I think this is the best Ho-Oh has ever done competitively. Nice to see a difference with this, because, and again, the whole reason Ho-Oh is able to be good now is because Koraidon is something that is good now that, you know, you could not use in Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon stuff. So now all of a sudden Ho gets to come out and play because this Koraidon thing is relevant. Otherwise, if Koraidon was not relevant, I don't think you would see as much Ho-Oh. And then of course Kyogre, you know, being the little trailer there, tied with Ho-Oh, but Kyogre teams are still like looking pretty good there. You know, besides the SwordFish teams, which actually underachieved by the way. I think some other pairings with Kyogre also are looking pretty good there. We'll look at those in a bit, but yeah, how about like the non-restricteds? So here's the thing with the non-restricteds, right? Let's look at day 1 usage here. A couple things to note. First of all, Incineroar, of course, we expect this thing to be number 1. Urshifu Rapid Strike there, even though it's like number 2 in usage here, it didn't really get as much play as one would thought. You know, in the later rounds of day 2, and for good reason. You know, there's so much Iron Hands and so much Miraidon that it didn't really get a chance to showcase itself there. But, you know, that's just like matchup specific there. I do expect Urshifu Rapid Strike to be a little bit more stronger later on. But how about Fluttermane? Again, looking pretty okay here. Rillaboom down to 22%. Very interesting. And you know, there's some good reason for that. And, you know, if you look at day 2, it's not even within the top 12. It's actually 13th there. And one would question, you know, why is Rillaboom dropping? Well, think about it. you want to bring Rillaboom into the Miraidon games, right? Because you want to change its terrain, you want to, you know, weaken its damage output. But now all of a sudden Miraidons are being paired with these Calyrex Ice Rider teams, okay? And you know, you can't bring in Rillaboom against Calyrex Ice Rider. It's too hard. It's just free food. The only way you survive is if you Terra Fire the Rillaboom, and that doesn't feel great because now your own restricteds, they don't get to Terra. Now, of course, you Terra if it wins you the game, but at the same time, it puts you in an awkward spot if you're a Rillaboom player, because now if you're playing against these Miraidon Calyrex teams, maybe you just leave the Rillaboom at home and you just have to, you know, deal with the Miraidon in the electric terrain there. But otherwise, the Calyrex Ice Rider says, you know, I welcome your Rillabooms. I want to click Glacial Lance in it. I want to get that free boost, so go ahead and bring it. So I think that's like one big reason why Rillaboom usage has dropped, at least in this early part of the format there. But Ferrograph, no surprise there. Chiyu also looking very strong there at 19%. Again, really good against Lunalas and the Calyrexes. You get to blow up Zamazentas, of course. Very good partner with the Koraidon teams because you get the boosted fire damage in the sun. And then the Tailwind setters, you know, Tornadus and Whimsicott over here, nice. Then you have Raging Bolt, also very solid. Again, if you don't have Miraidon, then, you know, Raging Bolt just fills that slot there decently. It's a good priority mon to click. It's very bulky. You know what this thing can do in Regulation G, no surprise here. Indeedee, again, another terrain control Pokemon. Lets your Calyrexes and Lunalas click Expanding Force. You get terrain advantage over Miraidon. You get Trick Room on your side. Redirection support, of course, like we said. Protect your allies, and of course the Ogerpon. How about Ogerpon Cornerstone being the highest used Ogerpon in day 1, right? But now if you look in day 2, now there wasn't a graphic for day 2, okay? But that's okay, because what we could do is we can go into Lab Mouse here and we can just narrow down the top cut teams, which is basically looking at day 2, right? So if you look past this, right, look at Incineroar at number 1 there, Iron Hands at number 2, and then Urshifu Rapid Strike at number 3 there, just in terms of usage. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger because I don't think you guys can see it on your end, you know, just for like video purposes here. Yeah, so like Incin 32, Iron Hands 32, you know, almost neck and neck there, and Urshifu at 28%, right? So like more or less similar ideas. Iron Hands rising quite a bit there, you know, 32%, because, you know, again, strong Miraidon teams are really utilizing that. Then after that, Ferrograph, of course, also really good. You know, a lot of these partners, you know, for Koraidon are naturally going to be in top usage because the Miraidon teams did so well. I said Miraidon, not Koraidon, I'm sorry. Then the Fluttermanes and Chiyus, again, these are good partners on the Koraidon teams, so naturally, of course, you're going to see them. They both had a slight bump in usage there. Ursaluna at 17%, right? Not even in the graphic here, but those Koraidon teams that have Ursaluna, along with those Lunala Miraidon teams that also utilize Ursaluna, very, very good. Ursaluna is just like a restricted that's not really restricted, because again, that ground normal typing, very, very useful. It's strong into like the other Miraidon Iron Hands teams, right? And that normal typing strong against Lunala and Calyrex Shadow Rider teams, just because again, they can't click Astro Barrage or Moongeist Beam into it. And then, you know, Facade is just broken, right, in Trick Room. So, you know, and then you go Terra Ghost, you get to avoid the fighting damage into it. So Ursaluna looking really good right now into the format, at least in the early get-go. And it gives you a pretty good pivot option for Ho-Oh as well, which we'll speak about that when we look at the teams here. Raging Bolt, of course, no surprise here. Then Brute Bonnet. Oh, by the way, look, yet again, we see this Brute Bonnet getting higher usage than Amoonguss, right? And that has now happened several times, you know, in some of the big tournaments. We saw this in Victory Road back in April, where Brute Bonnet was getting more usage than Amoonguss, and now we're seeing that more again. Because again, you know, Amoonguss not looking as great because again, there's even more Miraidon than normal, and now there's more Calyrex, so there's more ice damage coming around, and sometimes it gets a little tricky to use the Amoonguss, and you have to Terra Water to survive the Calyrex, but now you're just weak to Miraidon later on, right? And you can't even click Spore because of the electric terrain. So yeah, but after that, look at Grimmsnarl here. Now you get this thing entering the graphic within the top 12. And now look at Whimsicott and Tornadus. Now they're behind the Grimmsnarl in day 2, very interestingly enough. Actually, Grimmsnarl and right, 15.6% uses. This is only going to go up, I think. And in my opinion, because there's more Grimmsnarl, I think that's even more merit to run Urshifu right? Just so that you can break through screens. And that was the other reason why I wanted Urshifu on this Ho-Oh rental that I put out there, because again, you get to go past the Grimmsnarl screens. You don't even care about it. So like I said, to each their own. If you like the ground type in Ursaluna or Iron Treads, go for it. I think it's a great Pokemon to have. But, you know, I like the Urshifu here just for the reasons I was talking about earlier. And now you have an even more reason to use it because of the Grimmsnarls that are running around even more so right now. So, nice little switch in the Prankster Pokemon, right? So, and then look, Rillaboom, like we said, this thing is 13. Like, if you disregard the restricteds here, who's the top 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's your top 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So Grimmsnarl and Whimsicott rounded out here. Rillaboom at 13th. Okay, tied with Whimsicott, I guess, right? So it's still within the top 12 graphic, but now you're down to 13% Rillabooms. I don't think I've ever seen Rillaboom that low of a usage in competitive play in a very, very long time. I don't think I've ever seen Rillaboom dip below 20s. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. So we'll have to see what happens with Rillaboom later on, but you know, as it stands, these Miraidon Ice Rider teams, and also the Koraidon stuff, you know, with all the fire damage that they have, you know, again, all the more reason that the Rillabooms are in a bit of a trickier spot there. Volcarona, by the way, was one of the heroes of the regional there. You know, again, very, very high usage as well. You know, for good reason. Good ideas into Koraidon stuff, but more spotlight videos to come with Volcarona. But you know, in terms of day 1, day 2 uses, hopefully you get a sense of what things were looking like just in terms of what was used. But now let's actually look at the teams and let's see where the success really came from. Okay, so now let's look at the top 8 here. We'll start with Andrew's team over here, but Andrew was not the only one using this kind of idea with Miraidon Lunala. We did see Carson Confer, Shilion Tang over here, and I think there was one other that I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But you know, they'll do the little team report on Justin Tang's channel, I'm sure. But if we can preview this, we knew this was one of the teams coming in that could do very, very well. We've seen this a little bit in some of the online tours. But look at this, Miraidon Assault Vest with Snarl. Okay, first of all, what we're saying here is we're gonna forgo some damage and we're gonna go bulkier. We're gonna use our Grimmsnarl screens too, and then we're gonna have Snarl support. So this way, that's gonna be very useful against Calyrexes and Lunalas. You get to break their sash, you get to break Shadow Shield, mitigate their damage. They're not gonna do a whole lot, all right? Especially when you have your other screens set up too, okay? Then what we're doing is we're using Incineroar and Ursaluna along with this, right? So what we're saying now is with Grimmsnarl and Incineroar, we're mitigating all kinds of damage, right? So Light Screen, Reflect, you know, you have Fake Out, Reflect, Fake Out, Light Screen, then the next turn, then you can Parting Shot, set up another screen. So, you know, in 2 turns, you can already just mitigate all damage, right? And really cripple the opponent and then position yourself later on. And then against another screens team, this is where your Urshifu with the band is going to be really, really useful, right? Because you don't care about screens when you have Unseen Fist. Lunala here, same thing, you know, Electric Seed, defensive boost, Incin with Lunala, Fake Out, Trick Room, Parting Shot into Ursaluna, and then you go from there. And one of the classic combinations is Wide Guard Earthquake, really, really strong against like other Miraidon teams. And also against Calyrex teams, right? Because again, when you have Wide Guard Earthquake ideas, what you're saying is the opponent now, if they have a Calyrex or if they have, you know, just Glacial Lance and Astral Barrage, they can't click that because you click Wide Guard. And then that keeps your Lunala safe. And then that also keeps your own Ursaluna safe from both the Ghost type and the Ice type spread move. And then on top of that, you get to click your own spread move and protect your own Lunala because you click Wide Guard there, right? So it's really, really useful. And it's just a strong, we saw it on stream, right? How good that combo is. And then, you know, with the Lunala here, you can also just lead this with Miraidon. You can click Volt Switch, Trick Room, go into Ursaluna, and then all of a sudden you're poised the next turn. Your Flame Orb is up and going. So you can even do something like that if you really want. And then, you know, you still have Incineroar, Urshifu, Fake Out, Surging Strikes. You know, just a ton of damage pressure, especially, you know, make some trades early on. And then let these guys clean up in the back later. So lots of different ways that you can play this. It's very bulky, very supportive. It's annoying, right? Especially with Rocky Helmet breaking Sash against stuff like Chenpao for that matter. But also you get to put Urshifus in range of other things later on, you know, if you don't have the Miraidon out. I like Spirit Break on Grimmsnarl, right? As opposed to Foul Play, you get to really say, look, you're not going to deal a whole lot of special attack damage, especially with Snarl here. You've got Intimidate and Reflect, so we're good on damage mitigation here. Then you go into Dylan's team here, right? Dylan also, again, I think this is like his best result from what I understand from the interviews. Volcarona was a big player in this regional, and you can see from the top 8, there were 3 Volcaronas, right? For good reason. But yet we're still sticking with the core. We've got Miraidon, Fergaf, Iron Hands, okay? Now we slap on Calyrex Ice Rider for that Bolt Beam coverage. And now you add Volcarona to this, okay? You get another Redirector on your side. You get Will-O-Wisp to cripple another Calyrex Ice Rider if they're not Terrafire too. And then you can also cripple something like a Chenpao or Urshifu, whatever, especially with Flame Body, right? So all of that with the burn chance, really good. You could burn another Iron Hands for that matter. And then Fiery Dance on the off chance, 50% to boost your special attack is still a threat, right? So you can't necessarily ignore the Volcarona, which is really, really cool when you think about it. And then Ogerpon Cornerstone, another good partner with Calyrex Ice Rider. Again, just sturdy, really good in a format where there's so much spread move going around and, stopping other Calyrexes from getting their boost. Ivy Cudgel, really good against like other Volcaronas, other Incineroars for that matter, other Calyrexes too. So I like it. It makes a lot of sense. It's good neutral damage into a lot of different things. And then of course, Iron Hands is just Iron Hands over here. Luca Paz is saying the same thing as Andrew and those guys, but what we want to do instead is let's go a little bit faster. Let's go Whimsicott. We still get a screens with Light Screen, right? And then we have Encore, which can be useful in certain cases. And we still have the Moonblast Pressure against other Miraidons, other Koraidons for that matter, other Urshifus, right? So, and now we can play Tailwind and be super fast, right? So I like that idea too. I think they both work. Just depends on how you want to play the squad. Carson is the same as Andrews over here. Paul Chua is also relying on similar ideas to what Dylan was using here. We got a Volcarona with the Miraidon Calyrex here. You still got Iron Hands, you still got Fergaf. We do have Wellspring Ogerpon. That's the other one that looks a little interesting here, right? So, pretty good into Kyogre, I guess, right? And other Surging Strikes, Urshifus. I don't know what too many Urshifus want to come into this, right? Especially when you have Iron Hands and Miraidon, but Wellspring's still pretty good. Just water absorb, I guess. I don't know. I want to hear what Paul has to say about Ogerpon Wellspring. I suppose like something else here. But hey, it still works. It's still like a pretty good special defense stat. It's a bulky water type that another Calyrex can have trouble removing. So you can always just look at it in terms of that. Pokeaim MD. Hey, remember this guy? Look, this was our Week 8 opponent in his VGC Draft League. He took us out of the playoffs. Well, actually, we didn't even make playoffs. He took us out of playoff contention. 2-1. Shoutouts to Joel here. Maybe we can grab him onto the channel there. I'm trying my best. But he's also saying what we said earlier about Ho-Oh. You got Miraidon, Iron Hands, Fergaf. Very solid core there. He's using the bundle here, right? So what's really cool about Iron Bundle, right? Remember when we talked about this in our very first team building video with Miraidon and Calyrex? One of the first variants that we had was with Iron Bundle. Why? Because if you look at the speed tier, all right, with Iron Bundle, let me put this side by side with Fluttermane in case you have forgotten. Look at Fluttermane's speed stat, 135, okay? Iron Bundle speed stat, 136. Guess who's faster? Iron Bundle, right? So you're gonna get the faster Icy Wind, okay? Which means you're going to get the jump on the other opponent, right? Because your Icy Wind went first over their Icy Wind, and they may not even get to click Icy Wind because you get to knock out their Fluttermane if you have to target it, right? So I like Bundle, I like Quark Drive here, and then after this, you have that ground type, like we said, with Iron Treads, which works out very, very well with Ho-Oh here. We don't have Grimmsnarl screens, but, not necessarily needed when you have a lot of offense and you still have support with Iron Hands or Fergaf for, like, the Calyrex matchup too, right? So I like this. Treads is pretty cool. Sometimes it didn't work out for Joe when he did bring it, but again, just overall, pretty good into the mirror, right? Especially with Steel Roller, you get to blow up terrain. Earthquake also pretty solid next to Ho-Oh too, right? You can play it like that. Nice little synergy in that regard, which is also why or Ursaluna also works next to Ho-Oh because you get to click Ho-Oh, I'm sorry, Earthquake next to a flying type. So lots of good ideas there. And then Darsh Patel, this was a pretty cool one, right? Just because of the Calyrex set here, I get all of this, right? We know the screens stuff with Volcarona already, but look at this Calyrex set. Leftovers and Leech Seed. How about this? This is annoying. Why? Because what we're saying is when he clicks Leech Seed, you know, that's one way to win certain endgames where you're just getting like all this recovery. You can get a boost that way, right? And what you do is you force the opponent to make a decision. I have to switch, right? And if you switch, then you're out of position. So if there's something on the field that maybe you can't quite remove, right, with your super effective attack, you can use Leech Seed and then protect and slowly put it in range, right? And then you can KO it later. Or you force that switch, and then all of a sudden they bring something that doesn't want to be in front of a Calyrex or your partner Pokemon, and then you kill him that way, right? So that's one way to do it. Again, you still have the Grimmsnarl stuff, Ursh, Iron Hands, Volcarona again. But you know, that what was really cool was just the Leech Seed set. Maybe we can get Darsh onto the channel and maybe we can feature that. I don't know. And then Jonathan Quinones down here is saying, look, I want to be the turtle supporter, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go with the boring way. You know, I say boring, but of course I'm not really serious. But double fake out, double redirection, protect the king. Let me set up my Calm Minds. Let this Calyrex be the offensive yet supportive idea with my Pagos, because again, you get to whiff the fighting move. You can easily just switch this out for a ghost type in the face of a fighting type attack, or you can click protect, and if the Zamazentas or Koraidons go for their fighting type attack, you get to disable them next turn, and now Pagos can just freely set up Calm Minds and start sweeping because you can't click your fighting move anymore, right? Then you can also use like Encore stuff if they want to click Tailwind or Trick Room. Then you render their slot useless because, you know, they're just not clicking anything useful for 3 turns. And then that also gives you space to set up Calm Minds on your Pagos over here. And what you're saying with Pagos is, I don't care about your Miraidon terrain, I'm going to blow it up. I don't care about your Koraidon Sun, I'm going to blow it up. And then I get to potentially sweep you with a couple Calm Minds, and then you're clicking Terra Starstorm, right? And then everything else is just coming in and supporting. You know, maybe I get to click Spore after I blow up your terrain, right? Maybe I can, you know, do other things once I've gotten a couple Calm Minds boost, right? And then Cornerstone here is just another redirector that can deal solid damage. So shout outs to Jonathan over here for rounding it out with 8th place with a non-Miraidon team, like we said. So, you know, overall, like we said, if you just look at usage, you're going to miss the big picture, because how you build these Miraidon teams, you got to see there was some variance here in some of the partner Pokemon, which is great. But again, even with this top 8, that's not the whole story of the tournament. All right, now we get to look at these other teams here that also did very, very well, especially the Koraidon teams here that are rounding out this bottom half here of Top Cut here. I shouldn't say bottom half, like still the upper echelon, right? So we'll preview those teams, and then we'll look at some other squads and then some other interesting niche options that we did see from Milwaukee here. So let's take a look. All right, Koraidon Lunala we knew was going to be good heading into this. And how you build it and how you support it more or less is similar to what you were seeing in like the online Limitless tournaments, but there was some variance, right? So, you know, you could usually just start like this with Chiyu and a Flutter Mane, and this was often your core 4. Then you started to see stuff like Indeedee, or you even started to see stuff like Brute Bonnet, which again also do relatively well with these 4, right? Because again, you get to introduce Expanding Force with Lunala and terrain control over the Miraidon teams with the Indeedee. You get to have Trick Room, and you get to use that as well. You know, sometimes maybe you even run Trick Room on Lunala here. And then Brute Bonnet, again, the Photosynthesis grass dark typing also pretty good into stuff like Kyogre. You get to have Sucker Punch pressure against stuff like Calyrex, or even like another Lunala for that matter. You still get to click Spore, right? So what you can do is you can switch in Indeedee, change Miraidon terrain, then click Spore, right, and go from there. Otherwise, it's just another nice supportive threat to your offensive options that you have over here. And then sometimes they also just run, you could even run like Brute Bonnet and then just still have Raging Bolt here. Oops. Yeah, there we go. Raging Bolt is still like a good Pokemon to have on these teams. Again, it's another Photosynthesis Mon. All right, it's like a budget, you know, I don't want to call it budget Miraidon because it's 2 very different Pokemon, but it is another strong electric damage dealer that's pretty bulky, right? So you can still use this on your Koraidon teams here. I still think it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, let's look at some of these squats, right? So if we go up and if we just narrow it down, you know, we put in Koraidon here. All right, so let's look at Carl here. He was using the same card that we were just talking about, right? So look at this. He's got Psychic Seeds Indeedee, Retricum, Life Orb Koraidon, Covert Cloak Brute Bonnet, and then Chi-Yu Fluttermane, very, very standard set. Shadow Ball here, of course. So like Wide Guard and Expanding Force, we talked about this, right? Like we said, terrain control, you get to click Expanding Force, get to nuke that Iron Hands, that's so annoying. And then the Urshifus for that matter, and you still get redirection support, right? Very standard, very safe Lunala Koraidon team here. Sometimes they'll run the Ursaluna variant too. So like Incin, Amoonguss, Lunala Koraidon. Then same thing, like we mentioned earlier, fake out Trick Room, Parting Shot into Ursaluna, or just hard swapping into Ursaluna, and then go into Earthquake Wide Guard stuff, right? So you can still do this too. It's another variant that we've seen as well. How about this one from James Evans, right? You know, even though this is not Lunala, this is CSR Koraidon with the ability shield, right? Look at this with Chi-Yu, Raging Bolt, Brute Bonnet, Galarian, Weezing. What we're saying here, I'm taking away abilities. I get to keep my son. And then, you know, I'm just going for Taunt and Will-O-Wisp stuff. And, you know, I get to protect myself, make sure that I keep my ally safe too. You know, I have a Brute Bonnet here. I have speed control with E-Webs, and I still have a support set, you know, with Calyrex, you know, clicking Encore here. So shout outs to James Evans there. But as we go further down, like again, look at all these Lunala Koraidon teams here, right? Like it's really, like, this is another Ursaluna variant. This one has Brute Bonnet as opposed to Amoonguss, and then instead of Instant, we have the Chi-Yu. You can still play it this way. This was like from VR, right? We saw this do well there, and now Geo is just bringing it over here. So again, plays very similarly, but you still have like a more faster idea. You can still do Fluttermane Chi-Yu stuff. You can still do Koraidon Flutter stuff, okay? And, you know, even Brute Bonnet Ursaluna is the lead. You know, they kill the Brute Bonnet, you click Trick Room, you bring in Ursaluna, and, you know, more or less the same ideas moving forward, right? Louis Micah, that's what they have here. Millich, right? We'll talk about Michael Zhang in another different section of the video because, you know, this is another one of those weird teams. How about Mr. Wolf Glick here? 9-3, Incin, Amoonguss, Lunala, okay? No Ursaluna. Instead, Fluttermane and Raging Bolt here, okay? Yes, you can play this way. Look, you know, Incin, Amoonguss, Lunala is another good, like, Trick Room core, okay? Raging Bolt, again, benefits from the sun, benefits from Trick Room too, if you want to do it. And, you know, just being able to click annoying snarls and E-Webs, you know, being supportive while being offensive at the same time, just means a lot, right? And again, snarls is like a really good tech in Regulation I for a lot of reasons. You break Fluttermane Sash, you break, you know, Shadow Shield Volcarona, you break Calyrex Sash, and then, you know, Electro Web, same thing, like another good speed control move that can break Sash and be super annoying here. Like Raging Bolt is still like a very, very good mon there. So I like this too. You'll definitely see some people using that idea. Then it's just the same thing more or less. Yeah, exactly. What else? You know, again, it's just like mixing and matching these partners, right? So like this one has Incin over Chi-Yu, but you still have Raging Bolt, Brute Bonnet here, so you can play it like this if you really want to. But a lot of the partners are going to be more or less the same. Maybe just in that 5th or 6th slot, you'll see a difference there. And then, you know, again, same thing here. No real changes here, right? But what I want to also now talk about is not just the Lunala pairing, okay? How about the Koraidon and the Calyrex Ice Rider, right? We've seen a few of these, okay? And they're going to still be around here. Like, now, what's really cool about this is now you have another alternate mode to your team, right? So let's look at some of these CIR and then Koraidon teams here. Look at Jonathan's team here, okay? So here we go. We still get Wide Guard, just like what Lunala would be able to give us, but now we also still have Spore Pressure, which is something that, again, a Brute Bonnet can give us. So honestly, we have like some parts of Brute Bonnet and Lunala in this Miracle, okay? And then we have a redirection move, just like the Brute Bonnet. We have a Follow Me, and then we have this Bolt Beam cover. So what we're saying is if we add Raging Bolt to this, right? So Raging Bolt comes here. right, with Koraidon. And now we can add Calyrex because now we get the Bolt Beam coverage going, right, which is really nice because now this becomes a pretty good core. And now from here, it just depends on how you want to build the rest of the squad here. But you know, you don't have decorate here. Like immediately when you think like Calyrex Smeargle, oh, it's decorate. No, it's not. Okay, it's just another support set. Landers Incarnate was an interesting choice here, especially with like fast sunny day Landers. Oh my goodness, this is the tech. I love it. And then Ensign here is your fire type as opposed to something like Chiyu. Fake Out Trick Room is still very, very strong. Parting Shot is still very, very strong. So no surprises there. Okay, looking at a couple more of these. How about Cedric Veneer, right? This is Talon. Again, here we go. Koraidon, Calyrex Raging Bolt. Then you can add stuff like Fluttermane Chiyu, right? And then, you know, even Amoonguss still makes a lot of sense. No Protect Flutter, still okay. You got Shadow Ball, Icy Wind, and Taunt, still fine. But again, another way to play this. Again, similar partners to what you're normally running with Koraidon here. Bazad here, I think this is the same thing, right? Yeah, so it looks like they may have built together. Maybe they used the team that was built by somebody else. But there's a couple more of these, right? Jody here. So instead of Ensign, right, we still have Fluttermane, Chiyu, Raging Bolt, and then Amoonguss. So similar stuff. This one, Jody has Protect on his Fluttermane as opposed to, you know, Talon, who did not. But again, you know, if you want to build it like this, I think this is like a very safe build with Koraidon, Calyrex, just with Fluttermane, Chiyu, Amoonguss, and Bolt. You know, we could even like do a little spotlight team build on this one, you know, in like another video later this week. But I think this is also like the same idea, right? You know, again, just different order of the mons here, but it just makes a lot of sense, you know, just in how you want to build that type of team here. This one has the Cornerstone Ogerpon, right, and Iron Hands too. So you're still getting Bolt Beam coverage a little bit, right, because you have Wild Charge here. So, you know, again, lots of different people are experimenting. This is the first region on regulationI. People are trying lots of different stuff here. This one has the screens idea. Austin Le, he's going Koraidon Lunala. Then he's adding Grimmsnarl here with the Fluttermane here. No Chiyu, no Ensign. We have Ogerpon Heartflame instead. So this is another way that you can definitely play that. So yeah, lots of different partners. Oh my goodness. Oh, we'll talk about that one in a second. But yeah, but to each their own. But again, you see some of the ideas that people have been using from VR, and now they're just bringing it into here because, you know, this is what was safe. This is what was already successful in April with the online tournament. So, you know, a couple days into the early format, this is what I want to use with Koraidon Lunala or Koraidon Ghost type stuff. All right, the Calyrex Miraidon pairing. So we knew how good these two would be heading into Milwaukee here, and the results just show for it, right? Look at the strong day 2 results here. You have 5 of them within the top 16, right? So you've already peeped Dylan, Darsh's, and Paul's squad here. Let's look at a few more variants. Let's look at Zach Reed's over here. So Zach is saying, look, I've got coaching and I've got wide guard. I don't need Lunala. Okay, I don't need to commit my restricted for wide guard. I can just use Iron Valiant here and then support the Miraidon this way. And then I can coach, you know, the Calyrex especially. You know, I can protect and then just coach myself. Then I can even set Trick Room. And then you still have the Iron Hands Ferrograph combination with Miraidon, right? So you still have the classic 4 with Iron Hands, Miraidon, Ferrograph, and then of course you add a restricted here. This could be Lunala, this could be Calyrex Ice Rider, and then your last 2 slots depending on how you want to play the squad, right? So in this case, we're going with Heartflame Ogerpon, pretty standard idea here, and then you add the Valiants. So once again, we see another Scarf Miraidon with Snarl. Again, another good tech here. We've seen lots of Snarl users here, and it's just so useful, right? And, you know, this is just another way to play the squad here. So if you like this variant, this is also pretty cool. I'm interested to see now, you know, moving forward, will there be an increase in Scarf Miraidon? Of course, they don't want to play like these speed type wars, so it just makes sense, you know. Otherwise, you can go the slower, bulkier variants, you know, with the Assault Vest or even the choice specs that are slower. So you can even just play it like that if you so wish, but that was just another variant. How about Nick Borgi over here? He's also using Grimmsnarl screens. This is also with Incineroar here. Double fire type here with Incin and the Ogerpon Heartflame. So this is just another way to do it. I think it's also quite strong. This is never Melt Ice Calyrex Ice Rider, by the way. So no clear amulet. You can still do boosted damage with Glacial Lance here, so that's also pretty nice. So that's another way to play the squad here. I think William and Paul had pretty much the same idea. Same with Alex here. Is this the same squad here? Is this Steel Volcarona? It is Steel Volcarona. So I think they all had similar ideas. So I'm very interested to see if this variant will also rise here, because just because of how well it did, and just Volcarona along with Entei, by the way, is just a really good fire type right now, just because of the utility it can provide your team. You can do speed control, you can do redirection support, you have struggle bug for nerfing stuff. Fiery Dance is quite nice, especially if you can click it twice and get the boost. So we'll see what happens. But Volcarona, good typing against Koraidon, Zamazenta stuff for sure. Then as we go down here, just some other ideas. Look at this one here. This one has Whimsicott and Volcarona, right, from Benjamin and Harlan. So you have Endeavor, Whimsicott with Focus Sash. Oh, that's gonna put things in range for Glacial Lance, right? So you have to be careful with that sense. But again, Miraidon, Ferrigraph, no Iron Hands though. But we're going with AV Instant, to top it off here. So very interesting build from Ben. But hey, look, day 2, quite good. This one, again, another idea, but still Volcarona again, yeah, with Cornerstone Ogerpon as opposed to Wellspring. We've seen this variant a few times. Look how prevalent these Volcaronas are on the Miraidon Calyrex Ice Rider. That's kind of why I wanted to bring up this pairing as well, just because look how strong it is, but look at the fire type choice. It's not just all Ogerpon Heartflame or even Instant. In fact, the most popular one is Volcarona. If I had to count the first 20 teams here, look how many of the top ones had Volcarona. You have it's the same as Duncy, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's crazy. 10 over there. So 9 of these what is this, top 20 teams with CIR Miraidon have a Volcarona, which is kind of insane. So and they're not even all the same sets. People are trying different stuff. Not all of them have Morning Sun. Some of them have different things here. But it just makes a lot of sense. Just because of what Volcarona is supposed to do on that type of team. And then even this one here, Will-O-Wisp with Struggle Bug here, right? They don't all have Will-O-Wisp and or Struggle Bug here. So, and then here's a Ditto variant. Yeah, sure, might as well copy something. Eric Long's got a pretty interesting one here. 7-4 here, he's got a Sneasler. Okay, with the electric seed, I would imagine, and there it is. So now the Sneasler ends up being the fastest thing. Dire Claw, here we go. Toxic Spike Sneasler, hello. And then Low Sweep, Jesus, there's your speed control idea, right? Then we have a Ting Lu, Ground Dark typing, pretty good into mirrors and also against Lunala CSR stuff, because you have Ruination, right? You get to break the Shadow Shield, you're breaking Sash, you're breaking everything. I think Ruination Pokemon could also, Ruination on these Rune Pokemon could also rise a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wo-Chien with Ruination as well either. But sometimes it's a little tricky with the Ice Rider, right? But hey, you can lower its attack at least a little bit. But I understand the Ruination idea. Sand Tomb also, just for trapping things and taking tons of chip damage overall. Ability Shield Instant. I kind of understand that idea too. AV Miraidon, see? So look at this. So very interesting Miraidon team there, but look at the items, right? AV, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs. Tell me which is the best Miraidon item right now. I guess it just all depends on the variants. This one here from Zach, we're looking at Landorus. Again, yeah, here we are. Earth Power, Sludge Bomb, Sandseer, Storm. Okay, looks like part of a Calyrex Ice Rider core where you have the Ferrigraph and Cornerstone here. So yeah, and again, Landorus, pretty good into Miraidon. You're not going to take an electric attack. What you could do with Landorus, especially in an endgame, is you protect, make him click that electric move. Now you don't have to worry about him anymore. You just have to worry about removing the partner, because you always win the endgame, because Miraidon can't click out of its electric move once it's locked in, right? So part of the reason why AV is also rising, just because you don't want to be completely locked in. You want to at least vary up your attacks. So I kind of understand the need for a good ground type right now. And, whether it be the Treads, the Ursalunas, or the Landoruses, ground type being looks pretty good right now, just because there's so much Iron Hands, so much Miraidon here. But hey, at least we got an idea of like some of these builds and some of these sets. Volcarona, pretty standard. Like Ferrigaf Iron Hands is always going to come like initially on some of those starter builds. I like Grimmsnarl too. Like a lot of these teams also feature Grimmsnarl just because of the damage calcs it can ruin with the screen support there. But overall, this archetype is in a good spot right now. With the Calyrex Shadow Rider Zamazenta teams, you can kind of see the formula is more or less the same with the occasional 5th or 6th slot that is being swapped out here. So let's look at Keanu's team over here, 42nd place, right? Keanu, one of our good friends here. Yeah, and you know, you have to make a choice. Like, all right, do I want to put the sash on the Chenpao or do I want to put the sash on the Calyrex here, right? So if you put the sash on the Calyrex, that means this is going to be the Life Orb Ice Shard variant, right? And that is exactly what we have here. This is what we saw in VR. Very standard team, right? You know, Urshifu Rapid Strike with the Mystic Water for going to close combat because you got the Zamazenta for the fighting move here and opting for Taunt here. Rillaboom, Tornadus, you know, this is like one of our rentals too, right? So pretty standard here, right? So it can still do well. Then you have Evan Scott here, you know, more or less the same idea, right? And same thing, right? So like Sash here and then Life Orb Ice Shard on the POW over there. But then you get a little bit more variance as you move forward, right? Now you have like the Raging Bolt ideas, and Raging Bolt is still like a pretty good mon, like I said. So now we've got the Sash back on the Chenpao, the Life Orb on the Calyrex, but now we've got Entei, Zamazenta, Chenpao, right? So like this is also another pretty good trio, right, that we saw back in Regulation G, and it's coming back here yet again with the ban on the Entei, Sacred Fire, very strong in the Sun, of course, and then you have Priority, Terra Normal, E-Speed, and again, Terra Normal also lets you whiff the Astro Barrage Moongeist stuff. Stomping Tantrum and Flare Blitz, of course, Flare Blitz a little bit more damage than Sacred Fire, letting you pick up a couple KOs that Sacred Fire would not. AV Bolt with E-Webs, right, a little bit of speed control on your side, but again, with Zamazenta here, you know, you're just clicking Body Press and the occasional Wyguard to support yourself here. Then you've got like the Tailwind stuff, right? So you got Kevin over here, Kev Borlands. You know, he's got Grimmsnarl too. I don't think I like two Prankster mods on the same team. Very rarely does that work. There have been like some rare occasions where that was like okay, but and here's one of them, right? But usually you either want one or the other. Obviously, you don't bring both into a matchup. I think you just bring one over the other, and then the rest of the team is just like for other stuff. But, you know, look, you got Calm Mind, Draining Kiss Calyrex here with like Rillaboom, Grimmsnarl. I like that concept. I'd rather just have like another Redirect or Fake Out Mon here if I'm going to build Calyrex like this. But here we go, right? So you got Ursh, Rain Dance, Tornadus, right? So like you hear even then, like, you know, like Tornadus, Ursh, Rain Dance stuff with Zamazenta, Calyrex, that's like okay, right? And then this Rillaboom, like this is like the other part of the offensive core. And then the Grimmsnarl is like your Trick Room matchup, I would say, you know, just because you can stall it with screens. But at the same time, you also have like the Calm Mind setup variant, you know. So like you got a couple engines going around here. So yeah, Kev was able to make it work into a day 2. Sung Lee, like again, this one's using Incin. So no Chenpao, but instead going with the Incin variant. And this is Nasty Plot, Giga Drain, right? So like again, this is the setup idea. So Fake Out, double Fake Out to be able to do that. But you can see like a lot of these teams are like no more different than Regulation G stuff. Just adding a Zamazenta over a Raging Bolt for that matter. Vishista over here, you know, he's got the Raging Bolt here back again with the Indeedee. And then here's Whimsicott giving Tailwind support. But, you know, the pretty standard stuff. No, like, real surprises out of these Calyrex teams here with the Zamazenta stuff. So I think they're going to have to innovate a little bit more if they want to pull forward a little bit. But as far as, like, the first regional, you know, this is still, like, pretty good results there. But now we have a baseline, you know, for these squads here. So I do like this from Kyle, right? Because, again, you know, with Zam, Chenpao, and Entei, I like that. And then you still get Bolt Beam coverage with Raging Bolt, Chenpao, and then you have a nice little backbone here with the Mungus. So I think this is pretty good. Otherwise, you know, the Tailwind variants are still like okay. But we'll see what happens to the archetype as we move forward. Now, as far as like Zamazenta teams in general, I think like the most common partner besides the CSR was the Miraidon, right? So if you look here from Joe Ugarte, like we mentioned earlier, we were going to preview his team. Look at this, Miraidon screens Iron Hands. Then you add a Zamazenta, you know, versus a Lunala over here, Volcarona, and then here's the Ditto for your Trick Room idea. You're just able to copy a Calyrex, but not necessarily, you know, just for trick room stuff. You could copy a prankster Pokemon. You can copy, you know, something else there, but usually you want this, you know, just for like a little bit of an advantage, especially when you have a sash here. But if you can copy a free Calyrex with a sash, that's pretty useful in my opinion, right? So I do like this idea. Joe is basically adapting his Regulation G team into a Reg I team. You can also do this, you know, with Daniel and Yu's team here with this is the Rain Calyrex Ice Rider variant, right? So, you know, we've seen this before. This is usually, you know, Raging Bolt here, right? With the Pelipper, Urshifu, Amoonguss stuff with Landorus. But now we're adding a Zamazenta with Imprison. Okay. So, you know, preventing other Pokemon from clicking Wide Guard too, right? And also like other Zamazentas clicking Body Press. So I like the Imprison concept. That's pretty cool. I was wondering when we would see like some Imprisons in this tournament, and we did see one there. Then we already talked about like Keanu's and Evan Scott's team over here. How about this one? Another Miraidon variant. This one is Bundle, Instant, Farigiraf, Ursaluna. This one is not the Roar variant, but again, it almost looks like you want Lunala here, right? But again, Zamazenta is still like a pretty good Wide Guard user in and itself. Then other ideas, look at this one, Spencer here, right? Volcarona, Grim, yet again, Iron Hands and Chien-Pao, no Ditto, but instead we're going with the Pal variant, right? So Chien-Pao Zamazenta stuff, again, also with Iron Hands can do a little bit more boosted damage. So that's another concept that you can do. Joe Kwan over here, similar idea. Yeah, now you're just adding Entei to this. So like you're taking the Entei Zamazenta Chien-Pao engine and you're adding it with the Iron Hands Miraidon Farigiraf engine, right? So you basically took two engines and you combined it into one. And it actually makes sense here. You know, we have seen some synergy here, you know, with Entei on these Miraidon teams. And then, of course, they naturally good synergy with Zamazenta and Chien-Pao over here. So I like this. This is pretty cool. I like Joe's team. And then no, you still get the Ditto idea, but no Volcarona. Instead, we're running Entei again. So, you know, Entei, a pretty interesting niche, you know, somewhat popular pick on these Miraidon teams, of course. Pretty good anti-Rillaboom stuff. So, and also anti-Calyrex stuff. So, you know, just Sacred Fire Burn will do a lot of damage. Sacred Fire in the Sun is also pretty strong. Then, as you move down here, is this the same, more or less the same idea here? Yeah, this is AV Instant, right? So, okay, makes a lot of sense too. Zedong, so screens Miraidon still with Chien-Pao Zom. Ogerpon with Landorus here. Landorus with Fissure, by the way. Choice Scarf's Fissure, this is the odd one here. But again, these five also still make sense. Chien-Pao, Heart Flame, tons of damage. If you ignore it, you're in trouble. And then one last one over here. No Grimmsnarl here, but we do have the Cornerstone. So Miraidon, Farigiraf, no Iron Hands, by the way. That's kind of crazy too, right? But you've got Volcarona with Tailwind and Overheat Will-O-Wisp stuff. So this is pretty interesting. But again, the most successful pairing has been Miraidon. If you don't do Zamazenta Calyrex Shadow Rider, again, the occasional one here with Ice Rider, I guess it's still like okay. But other than that, you know, not too much results here. Yeah, a couple 5-3 teams here, but you know, it's nothing that you wouldn't see over here in the 8-3s and 7-4s there. Okay, how about we analyze the SwordFish archetype there? So when the format was first announced, this is one of the archetypes that people thought could do at least pretty decently, just because in the past Zacian Kyogre was pretty strong, aka SwordFish. The name, just because again, Zacian in the rain has always historically been pretty good. You know, you're able to use the Kyogre to deal with some of Zacian's weaknesses. So, you know, the ground types and the fire types like Incineroar, Kyogre can deal with those relatively well. And then if you consider Kyogre's weaknesses, something like, you know, Raging Bolt or Rillaboom, and even Miraidon, Zacian can also deal with those options as well, just because you have the super effective Play Rough. And then you have a faster speed here than the Miraidon, right? Just because, you know, base 148 is really, really fast. So ideally, these two on paper look pretty good. However, that being said, if we look at some of the tour results from Milwaukee, you know, just for the Kyogre teams and even the ones with Zacian Kyogre, Actually, the most successful Kyogre teams actually didn't even use Zacian. They used another restricted partner. And, you know, that kind of just goes to show you that there's a lot more weaknesses to Kyogre. I'm sorry, there's a lot more things that Kyogre are weak to this time around as opposed to, you know, Sword and Shield, right? Because you have the introduction to Miraidon and Raging Bolt, and you still have stuff like Rillaboom running around, and now you have Ogerpons that are also pretty good into the Kyogre minus the Wellspring Ogerpon. So, unfortunately, you know, now that you can have Miraidon on your, you know, as a second restricted, that makes things a little bit more problematic. I think, you know, you can kind of be, you know, be okay if you have like a ground type and terrain control with the Ogre, or at least some way to deal with Miraidon. But it's still like kind of difficult, and you're still like working quite harder than you need to, as opposed to if you just use something else there, right? Because if you look at Zacian Kyogre itself, you know, the highest placing team was 84th, right? From Max Legrand over here. And this almost looks like the 6 that we have as a rental that we put out for May. The only difference, of course, is instead of a Mungus here, we have a Raichu, Assault Vest Raichu, of course, Lightning Rod. There is your Miraidon Tech. But even then, you know, you can just nuke a Raichu, and then, you know, with a Draco Meteor or something like Dazzling Gleam, and the Raichu gets cooked. But at least with at least with the Assault Vest, you can kind of at least take a hit or two from the Miraidon in that sense. But, you know, Fake Out is great. Nuzzle is annoying, of course. And then you still get annoying Volt Switches. Feint is nice, of course. And then, you know, something like Coaching is going to be pretty good just to help Zacian get around the Intimidate cycling. And, you know, if you don't have a Mungus, you need a little bit more of a way to play into those Trick Room games, and this is why you need Substitute on the Zacian. So that's a good choice there from Max. But you can kind of see, like, again, a lot of the pairings are pretty standard. You know, you still got Tornadus, Chien-Pao, and Urshifu. That's never going to really change. But, you know, Raichu's a nice little tech here. Then you can even just do something like this with either the Landorus or even the Ursaluna. In my opinion, I think this is the best Ogre team, you know, just in terms of what we have available to us in terms of the tools. So this is from Rich Cuddy. This is Slow Sunflower, one of our viewers, of course. And he had a pretty good result, right? He had what is that, 7-4 there? Okay, started out red hot, started out 4-0, lost 2, then won his last 2 there. And then, you know, was able to round it out with a 7-4 result. But I like this Kyogre team the most of the ones that I saw, just because look at this. You've got speed control, you've got terrain control, and at the same time you have an alternate mode with, you know, Lunala, Indeedee, and Ursaluna, right? So of course you can take away Miraidon's terrain with Indeedee, and then at the same time, you know, you have Ursaluna, that ground type that you really need to pressure the Miraidons. And then you still have Tornadus Ursh to do what Tornadus Ursh are supposed to do. And I can see why they have the ability shield here. Okay, so, you know, it makes a lot of sense still. And manual Rain Dance is still, like, important for Urshifu, especially, you know, when you're going against Koraidon teams and you want to be able to change weather manually. You can do that, you know, with the self Rain Dance here. And then you still have Expanding Force Pressure coming with Indeedee. Obviously, Heal Pulse is nice here just because, you know, if you're Kyogre, which is Assault Vest, by the way, that's good. So now you can at least, you know, if you change terrain, you can take the Electro Drift from Miraidon. So I like that change. And, you know, Terra Grass just makes a lot of sense. But with Heal Pulse, now if you take those hits, your Water Spout is doing, you know, Wet Noodle damage. But if you heal yourself, the Kyogre can get its health back and do more with Water Spout. And that also helps Lunala over here. Because you can get back to full HP and get your Shadow Shield back. So I really like this team from Rich. Makes a lot of sense here. And we have seen Ursaluna teams on Kyogre in the past just for that reason, you know, to help you deal with the Raging Bolts and the, you know, the Miraidons. And I like Indeedee here, you know, along with Ferrigiraf, just because, again, remember what Kyogre is weak to. You're weak to Rillaboom priority. You're also weak to Raging Bolt priority. Indeedee takes care of that altogether. And then, you know, from there, you have redirection support to protect the Ogre. So this way, the Ogre can do Kyogre things, right? And then, you know, just the Lunala here with the Power of Moongeist Beam and Meteor Beam. 3 attacks in Trick Room, very solid. You don't need Wide Guard on this kind of team because, again, the Wide Guard was much more appreciated on teams like, you know, with Koraidon and Miraidon because those things are weak to Dazzling Gleams and Glacial Lances. But Kyogre's not really weak to any of those, and in fact, you resist the Glacial Lance. And with the AV, you don't really care about Astral Barrages and whatnot, so you're kind of okay with taking those spread moves. The only thing you're really worried about is that Miraidon single target damage, and this is why you have the Indeedee and the Ursaluna to help you out in that sense. So I like Rich Cuddy's team the most, but there were other pretty good Kyogre squads here. All right, if you look at the highest placing one, 54th place here from Samantha Platt, actually uses double terrain here, believe it or not. So as if, you got to get a little bit more extra terrain to help you into Miraidon, right? So Indeedee and Rillaboom. Usually, I personally don't like to play this way. I usually just, focus on one terrain, but hey, I guess this works too. It's a hyper-aggressive format, with the Whimsicott and the Ditto here. This can help you in the Trick Room idea. You get to copy the Calyrex potentially, right? And then you still get the terrain control with Indeedee and or Rillaboom. Oh, this is Choice Band Rillaboom. Oh, that's a choice. Pun intended, right? But the band here. But Mystic Water Ogre, and then this is Calyrex Shadow, with Terra Dark here. Shadow Ball and E-Force there. Of course, you have the Indeedee here. So it's a pretty hyper-offensive squad with the Ditto here, along with the secondary terrain users. So I kind of get it. Then you look at Ben, and he's doing the wheezing Dondozo stuff, chipping things away with Toxic Spikes, putting things in range, for Calyrex Choice Specs to do what it needs to do. I like Scarf Ogre here. This is a pretty cool idea. Remember when we made our rental in Regulation G, I think the 3rd month, where we went with the Scarf Ogre as opposed to Mystic Water, and then we put Mystic Water on the Urshifu. So at least this way, you're not reliant on Tailwind to try and outspeed the threats that are faster than Ogre. Now you can just say, I have what I need. I can go Modest Nature, if anything, and still get the speed boost from the Scarf. Okay, Icy Wind Scarf Ogre is kind of funny. I guess I get that. It can get you some speed advantage here. But what you can do here, ideally, is, do a ton of damage with Ogre. Even if it feints that turn, you're putting it in range for the Calyrex to clean things up in the endgame. Or you can do the Dondozo stuff. There's so much less Among Us right now. There's less Clear Smog Ugers. There's no one using Haze. So this Dondozo is kind of free to do whatever it really wants. So, especially after Poison Gas, Toxic Spike stuff, things are super chipped. Dondozo can just, alternate its protects, get leftovers recovery, and then eventually you're gonna be in range of stuff like, body press and, order up stuff. So we've seen this already back in Regulation G. This is now just adapted for Regulation I. So makes a lot of sense here. Here's another Lunala Ogre team here. Again, not even like SwordFish, right? Look at all these top Kyogre teams that aren't even using Zacian over here, right? This is just instant Among Us Rillaboomers. This is just straight up balance, right? This looks like it should be Calm Mind, but it is not. Just because I have double fake on redirection. Why wouldn't this be Calm Mind? I'm very surprised there, because it looks like it could do it. But you got leftovers. You might as well do Calm Mind. But again, they found more value with Wyguard and Trick Room here, and leftovers with Rillaboom here. And it makes a lot of sense too. But again, look, Among Us, no Clear Smog. How you dealing with Dozo, right? So anyway, this one even uses Calyrex Kyogre, right? And the Tailwind is coming from the Jugulus here with Snarl support. So again, we've talked about Snarl already, how useful it is against the Lunalas and the Calyrexes and the Miraidons. And then you add this core with Ursh, Among Us with the Calyrex, right? And then Landorus here is pretty cool here with the Kyogre idea. So this makes sense too. Usually we've seen Roaring Moon on teams like this in the past, but hey, it works out too. And then finally, we get into some of the more SwordFish teams, right? Look at this one. This one's a pretty interesting one. Look at this one. Daisy Pupil, okay? You've got Tornadus Kyogre Zacian, right? You've got the Rain idea here, but then you've got Chi-Yu, Brute Bonnet, and Raging Ball. Then you got the Sun Pokemon here. It's like, all right, at this point, what if I just take out Kyogre and just put Koraidon here? You've already got the Koraidon partners here. So, matchup specific stuff. I guess I kind of get it. But at this point, this almost looks like a Zacian Koraidon team. If you ask me, but I'm sure this can still technically work. Again, you still have Rain Dance here. So, even though you're not really relying on the photosynthesis or the fire type damage, at the very least, you can deal a little bit more damage with Kyogre and just manually change weather against those sun teams there. So I guess I kind of get where they're coming from here. This is a pretty unique one, right? It just almost looks like it should be Koraidon on this team, but we have a Kyogre. Then yeah, like this one here, the Colin Jacobs is 6'5". This looks like our rental, right? You know, I think did we put coaching on our issue? I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, yeah, this is like the standard 6 that was going into Milwaukee, or maybe even an Incineroar in the Chen Pao slot there. That has had success coming into Milwaukee, right? Yeah, this one. So Riley Wilcox. So like this one here, this is the standard 6 for SwordFish, right? And even then, 5'3" is your highest placement for that. So it's in an interesting spot for just in terms of like where Kyogre is, but you kind of understand why, just because if you consider the threats that's running around right now, you know, especially with so much Lunala wide guard, that's even harder for Kyogre to like try and get its footing here. Like this one looks like a regulation G team, right? Like Serena, Landorus here with Tornadus, like that's your core with Kyogre. Then Ursh here, and then instead of something like Raging Bolt here, you can just put in Zacian, right? So you know, this is another way to deal with. This one looks like this one looks like the Nails team a little bit, you know, with the Iron Hands here with the Kyogre Tornado stuff. And then we have Fluttermane over here with Icy Wind. So this is another idea. But even then, again, you know, these are 5-3 ideas. But again, they can do well. You know, I'm not going to knock the 5-3 teams. You know, you're 1 win away from Top Cut. This is another cool one, right, with Indeedee Landorus. Landorus could see some play a little bit more, I think, right, just because there's so much more Miraidon. And, you know, but the only thing is, again, the Calyrex Ice Rider that kind of helps you deal with the Landorus here. So it gets a little bit more trickier, right? So, yeah. Oh, C-Bomb Calyrex Ice Rider. That's pretty cool. There's your best of 1 tech almost. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Ogre moving forward. I think it's going to need like a little bit more of a newer build, but I understand some of the ideas people are trying to do. Maybe Zacian is just not the partner for it. Maybe it needs, you know, some of these guys, like another Calyrex, probably a better partner, even like Lunala too. So we'll see if another restricted ends up being a better choice than Zacian right now. Or maybe the build around Kyogre Zacian just needs a little bit more of a change up. All right, now for this portion of the video, I always like to spotlight and look at some of the more interesting teams that you normally wouldn't expect to see, or just like things that have like some crazy ideas here. And of course, I gotta go down here. Well, actually not directly to Michael Zhang's team, but at least we can go like in order here. Look at Riley's team over here. This is pretty cool. This looks like his Reg G team, but a little bit more adaptation to Reg I. So we got the Pagos Miraidon here with the Iron Crown Life Orb stuff. So of course with Court Drive, you're going to benefit from Miraidon Terrain here. And Tachyon Cutter, again, really good at breaking Sash and dealing solid damage. Terra Blast, Terra Ground, of course, nice into the mirror idea. And then, you know, Psychic is also pretty good, you know, in Psychic terrain. So if you want to change terrain against Miraidon, then Iron Crown is going to have a nice little field day at that. Pagos here with Expert Belt. So Terra Starstorm, Earth Power, Dark Ball. So three attacks and Protect. Okay. And you've got an Expert Belt over here. Then you've got Mystic Water Ursh. You got Standard Whimsicott here. And AV Instant with U-Turn as opposed to Parting Shot, right? So pretty cool team. So Riley says, listen, I'm going with Comfort. I've used this stuff before. So now let me just readapt it for Reg I. And this is what I get. You know, I'm in top 16, almost cracking single digits here. You know, I'll take it. And that's what Riley is saying over here. Then as we go further down, of course, we got to look at the GOAT right here. Look at this. Michael Zhang. My goodness. You play this guy and then, you know, you look at the team sheet and you're just like, oh, man. Like, what am I looking at here? So, Ho-Oh Koraidon. Of course, we know what this duo can do. Of course, the Ho-Oh, you know, boosted damage in the sun. Sacred Fire is going to hurt a lot. You got Tailwind support. And now, that's not the surprise, but the surprise is, you know, everything else. By the way, AV Koraidon. That's pretty cool there. So you get Collision Course, and then U-Turn, right? And then the 2 fire type attacks. But look at this. You got Lightning Rod Rhydon. Okay, remember, we used Rhydon in Regulation G when we did our collaboration video. Okay. Oh man, I forget the name. It was with the Lapras, Galarian, Zapdos stuff. It'll come to me slowly. But until then, yeah, Lightning Rod Rhydon. Again, you know, with Swords Dance. That was the set we used. Not me specifically, but when we featured our guest, whose name it's escaping me slowly, but I'll remember it, I hope. But anyway, Swords Dance Rhydon, pretty good in Trick Room too, right? So, and then the typing is really solid. But again, Lightning Rod, you can't touch Rhydon if you lock it into an electric type attack. It's going to do solid spread damage with Rock Slide and then high horsepower, of course. Then you've got the Comfey here with Floral Healing, Synthesis, Draining Kiss, Microness. What, you know, again, with Terra Water especially, so, you know, you get to resist like some of these fire type attacks, you know, and even the Urshifu stuff. Draining Kiss priority attack, Breaking Sash, Breaking Shadow Shield, of course, and, you know, just healing your partners and staying the course. You know, it's just really, really good. You know, people sleep on Comfey a lot, but not Michael Zhang. Okay, Walking Wake here with Life Orb and Snarl, and the 2 stab moves with Hydro Steam and Dracomir. That's like the only thing that's standard here. Well, I guess Snarl is usually on some of those like AV sets there, but hey, Snarl works here with Life Orb. And here we go, Toxic Pex with Wide Guard, Toxic Haze, Baneful Bunker. So my guy Michael is prepared for those Dondozo shenanigans. He's prepared to remove your Calyrex boost. Okay, he's prepared to play the long game with Toxic. Okay, especially when he's got recovery over time here with Comfey. He's got the Baneful Bunker stuff. He's gonna wait till he takes a ton of poison damage, all right, and then he's just gonna beat you in the 1v1 endgame. That's what Michael's saying here. And then look, you've got all this Regenerator here with Toxic Pex and Ho-Oh. These things want to switch. Okay, they want to pivot in and out. They want to get all this HP recovery, because while they're recovering HP, you're losing it because you are poisoned with Toxic. Okay, so makes a lot of sense. I dig it. And, you know, this is how Michael wanted to play it. This is what he's saying, or with his squad here, you know, just by looking at his sheet. And yeah, you know, he's just going from here. And the AV is going to be pretty good, you know, when you consider how much special attack damage is running around with the Lunalas and the Miraidon. So you might as well, and Fluttermane, can't forget that. And then Ho, like we said, that matchup into Koraidon, Zamazenta stuff, and like some of the Ogre Pawns is also like really, really good. So I respect it. I respect the Michael Zhang squad over there. Then we go down here to, what is it called? I saw, oh yeah, look at this one from Dawei. So another Miraidon Ho-Oh variant, but look at the Sinister attack here, right? Miraidon Ho-Oh screens, that's going to be here to stay for a bit. But now we've got Sinister here, okay, with Life Dew, Rage Powder, Machigacha, Trick Room. A very standard Sinister set, in all honesty. But again, think about it. You have Ho-Oh that wants to, like, you know, keep on switching in and out. It's taking damage, it's soaking damage. Heal it back with the Sinister, right? You know, you always want this stuff. Okay, and I can totally see some interactions, you know, especially with, like, Calm Mind, Miraidon, just trying to set up Cold for Cold. You can't fake it out, too. You can't get the Snarl reduction. Smart choice from Dawei. You can't get Icy Winded. And then, you know, even if you take some damage trying to set up, you've got screens, you've got Sinister recovery. Look, we're in business. So I really like this too. So nice idea to find the use for Sinister for a setup Miraidon here. Another item and another build for Miraidon that may get slept on there, but hopefully someone will respect the Dawei tech. All right, then as we move further down here, how about our guy Mr. Lorcy over here, right? You know, the CSR Pagos stuff, which we've seen before, but here's the, oh yeah, this is just like typical setup stuff here with Willow's Disable, right? You know, these two pretty good pairing right now. Of course, we've said this earlier, but then as we go further down, what else can we find here at 20? Yeah, no, I gotta go a little bit deeper. These are teams we covered already. More Ho-Oh squads there, of course. The Entei stuff here. This is cool. Oh yeah, Jin Fury. Yo, Jin, my guy Jin. Look at this. Of course, he's gonna run some kind of Trick Room idea. Here it is. Calyrex Ice Rider Necrozma Dawnwings has made an appearance. Not Lunala, Necrozma Dawnwings. Expanding Force, Moongeist Beam, Trick Room Meteor Beam with Indeedee, of course. Looks like that set, right? You know, that you would want to run when you have the Indeedee here. You've got Smeargle that wants to sport things and decorate, you know, the Calyrex. You want to decorate the Necrozma. And then, of course, Alchemy with the Sweet Veil. You know, you do your little shenanigans because Sweet Veil is pretty good at keeping you awake. Then another Decorate user. So you got a couple options for Decorate here. And then Encore, and look at that. Safety goggles here. You get to ignore certain Among Us shenanigans, of course. Ban Ursh with Indeedee. I love, the classic Sword and Shield lead. You protect the Ursh with Follow Me. You punch things with Choice Band. You don't care about Grimmsnarl screens. You just say, yeet, get him out of here. And let me set up Trick Room with that, right? So, pretty cool niche there for Necrozma Dawn Wings. Then, if we go a little bit more down here, we get past some of this other stuff. And then, what else can I find here? Oh yeah, look at this. The other Necrozma. I was like, where is it? The only other Necrozma team here, right? Necrozma Duskmane is here. With another pretty cool set here with Koraidon and some friends. Brute Bonnet, Walking Wake, okay. Photosynthesis Bonds, yes. Necrozma Safety Goggles, you get to ignore Mungus stuff. Sunsuicide, Photon Gaussian, Trick Room, Protect. Okay, standard set there. Terra Dragon, makes sense. Heart Flame, Ogre Pawn. Of course, in the sun's gonna do damage. Clear Amulet, Koraidon, right? One of these things have to have the amulet, so he's opting for Koraidon here. And then just putting Necrozma with the goggles. Photon Guys, you get to Nuka Mungus, which is cool. Ting Lu is gonna be annoying, right? Just because now you can't really you're reducing special attack damage against Necrozma. Prism Armor is really good, by the way. But again, Runation, Breaking Sash, Breaking Shadow Shield, Lash Out, Stomping Tantrum, Heavy Slam, very standard AV set there with Brute Bonnet, clicking Spore on things. Okay, pretty cool team. Gerald, I don't know if you're watching, but hey, if you got the rental for this, I'd love to bring it onto the channel. I'd love to use this. Then, more stuff as we further down, more Ho-Oh stuff. Ho-Oh had a great result. Look at this one from VGC. Yo, another one. VJ Suda is back at it. Look at this. We got AV Zacian, not the Crown Zacian, AV Psychic Fangs. He's saying, listen, I'm tired of Grimmsnarl. I'm getting rid of that. And that's what we're saying here. Psychic Fangs could be like a text to Rise is Brick Break and Psychic Fangs, okay? Don't sleep on it. Play Rough, Sacred Sword, Crunch. Okay, cool. Wait, wow. No, of course, no Behemoth Blade here, right? And then look, we've got Gouging Fire here with Dragon Claw, Flare Blitz, and Crunch. Oh my goodness. Cresselia here, Rocky Helmet, Lunar Blessing, Power Gem, Ally Switch. I only wish I was as cracked as VJ Suit, guys. Look at this. AV. Look at Pagos Zacian. First of all, Choice Specs Pagos. Flamethrower, Earth Power, Starstone. Oh my goodness, man. We're cooking every slot here. The only thing that's standard is the Ogre Pond Wellspring. We even got Hisui and Zoroark here with these shenanigans. Bitter Malice, Shadow Sneak, Flamethrower. Oh no, man. This is crazy. I'll never be this good, guys. There's no way. Yo, shout outs to VJ soon, man. I want to use this team. Yo, VJ, if you're watching this, let's get this squad onto the channel. We gotta try and use this. Oh, yo, VJ and Michael Zhang were. I want to see a regional finals. Or just a matchup, VJ Suit and Michael Zhang. I just want to see these two go at it, guys. I don't know. Do you want to see that? Yo, I want to see that. Okay. Enough fanboying there. Can we find a couple others moving down here? We already covered Daisy's team over there. More. What else was pretty? No, we've seen something like that already. All right, we're looking to like a 5-3 team here. I think there was one that I was like somewhat interested in. I think we didn't pass it, but right here, yo, Rayquaza. Oh man, Rayquaza, Chen-Pao, Peyton Walters finding a niche for Chen-Pao, Rayquaza there, but it's not what you think. It's not extreme speed. Look at this. You got Dragon Ascent, Dragon Claw, D-Dance, okay, the 3 dragon moves, okay, and what we're saying is, look, I'm gonna, make myself faster. I'm gonna be super aggressive here. I've got Talonflame without Tailwind. Okay, wait is this an error? Wait, Talonflame with Tailwind at Tailwind. That's not an item, that's a move. Okay, it says none here. Is this like some kind of team sheet error? Is that what we're looking at here? I don't know what the heck is this. Acrobatics, Protect, Will-O-Wisp there, none. All right. And we got King Gambit. I haven't seen this thing since like Regulation G. No, not even Regulation H. So that was pretty cool there. Meteor Lunala here is your other restricted with Rayquaza here. So Wide guard support. Okay, yes, we don't like Glacial Lance. Yeah, this is another team that's like cooking here. The Dragon Dance Rayquaza. So shout outs to Peyton Walters there. I think I was trying to scroll further down here, but I didn't really find anything else that I wasn't seeing already in the higher results here. So yeah, I mean, that's it. So let's just get you to like the final recap here, and let's summarize things that we saw overall, right? All right, so these are just some things that I wrote down on a little Google slide over here. So Grimmsnarl screens, your bulkier builds with Grimmsnarl screens are gonna help a lot, right? Because you're basically ruining a lot of those damage calcs that people have on hand. You know, when they're first building their squads, they're not taking into effect Grimmsnarl screens, right? So now, you know, when you have this, you're able to survive. You can stay on the field and KO them right back with your damage. So, you know, as is the case with most Grimmsnarl teams, right? And again, the whole idea, I can't stress this enough. When you have multiple restricteds and you're just dealing out all this damage, you gotta find ways to mitigate that damage. And the screen support is one way to do that. I would suspect other people find other screen users besides Grimmsnarl, but as of right now, the Grim is looking pretty good, a little bit better than the Whimsicott Tornado stuff here. But not to say that those two aren't going to be great, but I think right now the results show you that, you know, Grim is in a pretty good spot over those two at the moment, especially when you compare day 1 into day 2 usage. Okay, the Snarl techs, again, we saw some Pokemon with it. You know, not just Chiyu, we've seen Miraidon use it, as well as like some other Pokemon that can also use Snarl, like Entei gets Snarl, you know, Raging Bolt gets Snarl, you know, even Zamazenta gets Snarl too, right? So like lots of Pokemon that want to have Snarl, and even some Pokemon that maybe you normally wouldn't give Snarl to, will find some use out of it just because of how useful it is right now into, you know, stuff like Lunala, Calyrex stuff, breaking Shadow Shield and whatnot. And, you know, the Ho-Oh Miraidon archetype is finally officially born, right? Ho-Oh Miraidon screens too is strong, and, you know, it's nice to see Ho-Oh competitively get results here, you know, because prior to this, not too many people were using Ho-Oh, you know, over the last few years or so, but finally we get to have some good use of that Pokemon. It's a good mon. I like it. Well, it is good now. Now, that being said, you know, with so much screen support, maybe we find ways to break screens. Maybe the Psychic Fangs Brick Break tech could rise a little bit. And, you know, Urshifu not so much was a player in the stronger, higher results there, but it is on these teams, but not people really were using it. That's because Miraidon is so good. But maybe we still find some use out of it just to get past those screens. So we'll see. Ursaluna, again, I call it a free restricted. It's so good, especially when you have wide guard support with that thing, where you could just click Earthquake and deal big damage against those Miraidon Iron Hands teams, and then not really care about Moongeist Beam and Astral Barrage because of your normal typing. So we'll see. But, you know, Terragosa is also really good at getting, you know, whiffing fighting type attacks into it. And then Volcarona, right? As well as Entei too, right? I think Volcarona is also pretty good right now in the meta just because of the support it can have. That bug typing, you know, pretty good against the fighting coverage that the Koraidon and Zamazentas want to click. Flame Body Will-O-Wisp is strong, okay? And then Entei, of course, Sacred Fire, you know, not having to commit the Ho-Oh slot is important, right? So now you get Sacred Fire with Entei. Inner Focus, you can't get intimidated or faked out, right? Of course, we know what Entei can do. The Terra Normal E-Speed stuff, we know, again, pretty good, in, you know, especially with Chen Pao. But they both have had good results depending on the squad that you place them on here, right? So, yeah. But other than that, you know, you got to see, you know, a little bit more from some of these squads here that we had some questions entering into Milwaukee, right? But the early results and the early returns, you know, have been pretty good for where we are right now in the meta, okay? But I'll leave the video with this, just in terms of like, wait, where was the day 2 CloverBells team? Okay, so now let's take a look at that one. All right, so where was the day 2 Clover squad here? So let me scroll all the way down here. Okay. Right here at 107, Kevin Love, you know, just barely squeaking in, you know, above the 5-3s, he got in, and he says, yeah, I brought this squad here. So Kevin, right, so basically it was Kevin's first VGC event, right? Like not even first regional, just first VGC event, okay? He he found our videos. He found this variation that we put out on the channel. He says, I'm bringing this to the region. Now, I did not know this at the time, okay, because he reached out to me afterwards when he commented on my post saying, you know, he brought this squad there. So shout outs to Kevin, man. Your first VGC event, you make day 2. And if you really want the spreads here, you know, if you go into our channel and you go to our team building video with Miraidon and Calyrex, and here are the spreads here. Here's the paste. So yeah, this is what we came up with at the time. And it looks like the same stuff that we put out for the rentals, obviously, you know, just because I like to use like some standard proven EV spreads when the format first starts. And so here it is. If you want it, here it is. He gave us the rental, which is great. So I guess I got to use it on the channel, right? But you know, so shouts to Kevin, man. You did great for your first event. Let me just see like some of the results here. He said he got a little bit unlucky with some RNG in the day 2 stuff, but look at what he was doing in day 1. Like, oh, he had a strong start here. He was at 5-1 here, you know, kicking butt here, and then he runs into some guys that I'm very familiar. Well, not like I know, but like I see some familiar names. Kyle Livinghouse over here, Ian McLaughlin, of course. You know, hey, listen, you know, day 2 at your first event, and then you get some CP out of it. You know, big regional 2, you know, 700 players. You know, congrats to Kev. You know, thanks for using the squad, of course. And you know, you're only gonna get better from here. So day 1 you did great, and then you run into the day 2 boys, right? But hey, that's okay. You know, I think the other builds besides the starting one are a little bit better than what you could get out of this. But at least if you're trying to learn the format, this is a good team to pick up with. And like I said, like I've been saying, like in our team building videos, we always test the teams extensively. You know, they always get good results. Otherwise, I wouldn't put them out for people to use if they were not good, right? And, you know, as historically as we've shown, right? But congrats to Kev. You know, and you know, we can do the same for you. So if you are interested in coaching, right, and if you're interested in getting better at VGC, if you're interested in the team building aspect, right, which is the stuff that we specialize in, okay, feel free to sign up for coaching on the channel. Tier 3 gets you a team building session with me, right? One-on-one, we get to build the squad the way you want it built. We'll hash out the EVs. And then from there, you know, if you want to take it a step further, that's where you go into tier 4, where you get to, you know, show me some of your games. I get to give you feedback. I get to give you some advice on how to play certain matchups. And then that'll take your battling to another level as well, right? Very affordable as well. You know, just $10 for the tier 3, and I think it's 15 for the tier 4 if you want to take it a step further. But, you know, to each their own and to each their needs. But, you know, if the team building part is what you're looking for, then definitely sign up there and reach out to us on Discord when you do. If you look in the video description below, as well as in the comment section, there is a pinned link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. And then from there, that's when you can message me on Discord, and then we can plan something, you know, for the regulation-I format. It's fresh, it's new. We have a lot of data to back up some claims. So hopefully moving forward, we can help you guys out if you so need it. All right, but that's it for now, folks. Let me know what you thought of Milwaukee. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.